What you are about to watch will leave many in shock, some in deep reflection, and, most importantly, many will finish this video on their knees, praying for what is about to come as revealed by the Lord. Without doubt, there is a high tendency that it will happen. Yes, beloved, I advise you to listen for yourself. Now, beloved, kindly tell us where you are watching from. This will help us see how this great experience is touching lives across the globe. Most importantly, it will help you meet a brother or sister here, make new friends, and foster the unity we seek as we encourage one another to pray and stay strong in faith. My beloved brothers and sisters across the nations, I write these words not as a rabbi full of pride or knowledge, but as a man who has seen what words cannot describe. Since that night, my heart has carried a burden that will not rest. I cannot keep silent. My name is Rabbi Eliyahu ben Avner. I was born and brought up in Jerusalem, just a short walk from the Western Wall, where my father used to take me every Sabbath. I grew up surrounded by prayers, sacred songs, and the weight of our ancient traditions. For most of my life, I lived as a devout Jewish rabbi, holding firmly to the laws of Moses, the writings of our prophets, and the customs passed down through my fathers. From my youth, I was taught that we are a chosen people, and that the promises of God are sealed forever in His covenant with Israel. Like many rabbis, I never believed Jesus to be the promised Messiah. To us, Jesus was a good man who taught kindness, but not the anointed one we awaited. We believed that the Messiah would come with great power, rebuild the temple, bring peace to all nations, and sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem. Jesus did not fit that picture. He came as a humble servant, and He suffered and died. How could the Messiah die before fulfilling His promises? That was how I always thought. I spent years teaching the Torah and leading prayers at the synagogue near the Mount of Olives. I held sacred hour festivals, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Each carried deep meaning for us. The Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, was one of my favorites. It reminded us of the coming judgment and the call to repentance. We blew the shofar, the ram's horn, to awaken our spirits and remember that the King of the universe is watching. I always felt a strange pull in my heart during those days, as if heaven itself leaned closer to listen. I also cherished the mystery of the Golden Gate, the ancient eastern gate of Jerusalem that faces the Mount of Olives. We were taught that this gate would open when the Messiah finally comes to bring redemption to Israel. For centuries it has remained sealed, and I often walked near it during evening prayers, wondering what power kept it closed. I lived quietly, believing what every faithful rabbi believed, that we must wait for the coming of the Messiah who would save our people, not a man from Galilee who was rejected and crucified long ago. That was my conviction, my comfort, and my identity. I didn't argue with Christians, but I always kept a respectful distance from their faith. In my heart, I thought they had taken the writings of our prophets and misunderstood them. But all that changed during a time of sickness that nearly took my life. I was not looking for visions or miracles. I only prayed for healing. Yet, what I experienced in those days revealed to me truths so deep and frightening that I can never forget them. Some people call what I had a near-death experience. I do not know what to call it. I only know that what I saw and heard was real, and it shook me to the very foundation of my faith. It was during the autumn just after the Feast of Trumpets. I had been weak for several days, my body trembling with fever. My wife called for the doctors, and they said my heart was failing. They placed me in the hospital near Mount Scopus. That night, I did not expect anything unusual. I simply wanted to sleep. Yet, in the silence of that dark room, something strange happened. My body lay still on the bed, but I felt light, as if I had suddenly stepped out of a heavy robe. I didn't feel pain or fear. I just felt free. I turned and saw myself lying motionless, the heart monitor beside me blinking faintly. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but everything around me was too clear, too real to be a dream. Some would later tell me that this was a near-death experience, but I do not remember dying. There was no struggle, no tunnel, no light pulling me upward. It was as if time had stopped, and I was quietly lifted into another place. I remember thinking, perhaps I am just resting, but then I noticed something far more mysterious. I was no longer in the hospital room. I found myself standing on a vast plain, surrounded by a stillness I cannot describe. I could feel a presence near me, unseen but powerful. I tried to look around, and in a moment, the land of Israel appeared before me. I saw the Feast of Trumpets happening below. People in white garments stood before the western wall, blowing shofars in harmony. But what I saw next was not of this earth. From every trumpet blast rose a fragrance, golden mist spiraling upward toward heaven. The scent filled the air, and I understood it was the worship of the people, carried up before the throne of God. I felt tears on my face as I watched the offering being accepted like a sweet-smelling aroma in heaven. Suddenly, the entire scene shifted. The sky above Jerusalem grew brighter and brighter until it was like glass. Then I saw 7 great clocks appearing one after another, shining like mirrors hanging in the heavens. They moved slowly, and each one had a motion inside it, like a film playing. From where I stood, I could not see clearly what each clock held, but I knew they represented something beyond time, something about the future. One by one, the clocks began to turn, glowing softly. The first 6 stayed distant, but the 7th clock began to move toward me. It was larger than the rest, and I noticed faint markings below each clock, Hebrew letters forming what looked like dates, but they were too far to read. Then, as the 7th clock drew closer, I could see the writing clearly. It was written in Hebrew, October, November. The moment I read it, a chill ran through me. I looked around and realized the date of that vision was the 28th of September. Somehow, I knew deep inside that what I was seeing was connected to events soon to come upon the earth. Before I could ask or think further, the clock flashed, and everything around me changed like the turning of a page. When the light from the 7th clock surrounded me, I suddenly found myself standing before the eastern wall of Jerusalem. It was the Golden Gate, the same gate I had prayed beside so many times, but now it looked more radiant and alive than ever before. The stones glowed like molten gold, and the air around it carried a sound like gentle thunder. I felt both awe and trembling in my heart. For those who may not know, the Golden Gate, also called the Eastern Gate, is one of the oldest gates in Jerusalem's city wall. It faces the Mount of Olives and leads directly to the Temple Mount. Jewish tradition teaches that when the Messiah comes, he will enter through that gate to bring redemption to Israel. Centuries ago, it was sealed shut, many say by ancient rulers who feared that prophecy might come true. It has remained closed since, a silent witness to our waiting and hope. But in that vision, the gate was not sealed. It stood tall before me, glowing with heavenly light. People from many nations gathered around it, men, women, and children of different tongues and colors. Some wore traditional Jewish garments, others came dressed in clothes from distant lands. They were pilgrims, drawn by the history and holiness of that place. There was a calmness over them, a deep reverence. Everyone looked toward the gate, waiting. Then, without a sound, the gate began to open. Its great doors moved slowly, and a light brighter than the sun poured out. At that very moment, my heart trembled, because I knew that what was about to be revealed carried eternal meaning. But what I saw next made me weep in a way I had never wept before. Inside the gate were many ancient scrolls, countless scrolls piled upon one another, each glowing softly, covered in Hebrew letters and golden seals. I understood that these scrolls carried the history, the promises, and the covenant of Israel, the record of God's dealings with his people through all generations. But suddenly, a strange fire appeared among them. It started as a spark, then quickly spread until the flames consumed everything in sight. The scrolls began to burn under intense fire, curling, breaking, and turning to ash. The crowd watching gasped in horror. People fell to their knees, crying out in anguish. Some ran forward, trying to put out the fire with their hands, but the flames did not respond to water or effort. It was a fire beyond human control. The sight of those sacred writings, our story, our truth, our covenant, being burned brought a pain deeper than words. I could not stop my tears. The people wept, and the sound of their sorrow echoed across Jerusalem. And then, as suddenly as it began, the fire stopped. Silence covered the whole city. The air hung heavy with ashes that fell like dark snow. Everything that once held the memories of our faith was gone, only dust remained where the holy scrolls had been. I wanted to cry out to heaven, to ask why such a thing was allowed. But before I could speak, the ashes began to move. From the ashes rose strange shapes, dark, winged creatures that looked like owls, but larger and fiercer. Their eyes gleamed with red light, and they moved in restless fury. They multiplied rapidly, rising into the air by the thousands, then millions. I watched in horror as they spread out from Jerusalem, flying in every direction, north, south, east, and west. Wherever they passed, I saw confusion, violence, and unrest break out among people. Cars crashed, crowds fought, nations argued, and chaos filled the streets. The creatures didn't speak, but their presence stirred anger, hatred, and madness. I felt the weight of evil pressing down on the world. My spirit trembled, and I cried, "O Lord, what does this mean?" As the last echoes of the people's cries faded, the light around me turned into a golden mist. I lifted my eyes, and there before me stood a figure so great and radiant that I could not look directly at him. His presence filled the air with peace and power. Though I could not see his face clearly, I knew it was an angel, one of great authority, sent from the throne of God. I stood silent, trembling. He didn't speak with words that my ears could hear, yet his voice filled my heart. It was as if every word he said entered directly into my understanding. He revealed to me that what I had just seen, the burning scrolls, the weeping nations, and the dark creatures rising from the ashes, was not just a vision of sorrow, but a warning of what could soon come upon the earth. He let me know that the scrolls represented the covenant of God with Israel, the promises, the law, and the foundation of truth that God gave to the world through his people. When the fire consumed the scrolls, it was a sign of the world's rejection of that covenant, and of the attempt by nations to erase the faith of Israel from history. The angel revealed that there are many who hate Israel, and in secret they are planning to rise together against her. He said these plans are not only political, but spiritual, driven by powers of darkness that seek to destroy the root of God's promise. He let me see that the owls I had watched spreading across the earth were not ordinary creatures, but symbols of this evil, of confusion, deception, and destruction. He revealed that if the nations succeed in bringing harm to Israel, it will not end with her. The evil released will cover every land, filling the world with chaos. The burning of the scrolls was not only a loss for the Jews, it was the world's loss of truth. When that truth is gone, darkness rises without restraint. Then he showed me again the seventh clock I had seen earlier. Its light still hung above, turning slowly. The angel pointed to the bottom of the clock where I saw the Hebrew words October, November. He made me understand that the time written there was not just a date but a season of testing, a moment appointed in heaven when the plans of men and the patience of God would meet. He revealed to me that if people turn their hearts to God, pray for Israel, and seek mercy, what I saw could be turned away. But if they do not, then the events will unfold swiftly and will affect every nation on the earth. The angel let me know that Israel is not only a nation but a covenant sign, a living reminder of God's faithfulness. He said that when the nations curse her, they curse the promise that guards the earth itself. God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was a covenant of preservation. The moment Israel is brought to ruin, that covenant on which the earth stands will be broken, and evil will spread without boundary. I felt my heart breaking. I asked within myself if there was any hope. The angel's presence softened, and I felt peace again. He revealed to me that intercessors, those who love God and pray, can change what is written. He said prayer can turn away judgment, that mercy still stands before the throne, and that the will of God is for Israel to endure until every word he has spoken over her is fulfilled. Then, as quickly as he appeared, the angel began to fade. The sound of wind surrounded me, and the light dimmed. I felt my body being pulled downward, back toward the earth. I felt myself being carried downward, faster and faster, until the brightness faded into darkness. Then, in one sudden moment, I opened my eyes. My beloved brothers and sisters across the nations, I write these words not as a rabbi full of pride or knowledge, but as a man who has seen what words cannot describe. Since that night, my heart has carried a burden that will not rest. I cannot keep silent, for I have tasted the truth and the fear of the Lord in one breath. What I saw was not a dream, it was a glimpse into what could become our reality if we do not return to God with all our hearts. I beg you to take these words seriously. The vision I saw was not about politics or one nation's story. It was about the covenant that binds heaven and earth. When the angel revealed that the burning scrolls represented the loss of truth, it became clear to me that we are living in a time when many are forgetting God's promises, turning their backs on His word, and replacing truth with lies. It is not only Israel that is in danger, it is the whole world, because what touches Israel touches the foundation of God's mercy for all mankind. When I saw the owls, those dark creatures flying across the earth, I understood that evil grows when people stop praying. Confusion rises when families stop reading the scriptures together. Darkness spreads when believers begin to fight each other instead of standing together in love. The angel revealed to me that these things are not far away, they have already begun. But we still have a chance to change the story. I now believe, deeply and without doubt, that Jesus, whom we call Yeshua, is the promised Messiah. I once denied him because I thought his death meant failure, but now I see that his death was victory, and his blood sealed the covenant of mercy that still protects the world today. I do not say this to argue or to judge, but because I have felt his love, a love stronger than judgment. He is not only the hope of the church but the hope of Israel and the nations. I ask every believer, every man, woman, and child who calls upon the name of the Lord, to rise in prayer. Do not wait for another sign or another prophecy. The time is already upon us. Pray for Israel, for peace in Jerusalem, and for the nations that have turned against her. Pray that the fire of hatred will not consume the world, and that the mercy of God will cover the earth once more. If we fall asleep now, evil will take deep root, and confusion will fill every country. But if we rise in prayer, fasting, and love, the heavens will hear, and what I saw can be changed. God's plan is not to destroy but to redeem. He desires that none should perish but that all should come to repentance. Since I returned from that experience, my heart has changed. I read the scriptures not with my old eyes but with tears. I see Jesus in the words of Moses, in the Psalms of David, and in the promises of Isaiah. I now live with the understanding that time is short, but mercy is still open to all who seek Him. My dear friends, love one another. Forgive quickly. Help those in need. Hold your faith tightly, but never without compassion. And above all, pray without ceasing that the will of God will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If we do this, what was shown to me will not come to pass, and the world will see the hand of God turn darkness into light once again. This is my plea, from one who once doubted but has now believed. The Messiah lives, and He is coming soon. Let every heart be ready.